to be a Leaf fan. There's not much to talk about. Aaron and I sat here. We discussed everything that needs to be talked about the Leafs, and we've come down to this. What are the Leafs projected to be, and where are they saying this?
So apparently the Hockey News in their sum up for the last season in their newly released 2026 yearbook issue said Toronto was picked to finish ahead of the Sabres while being just behind the Tampa Bay Lightning for the Atlantic Division this year. They're projecting Florida to go first, Montreal second, Tampa Bay third, Maple Leafs fourth, Sabres fifth, Senators sixth, Bruins seventh, and Detroit Red Wings dead last. Now, Toronto's penciled outside of the top three, meaning it wouldn't guarantee them a playoff spot, but that gives the team a pretty good chance of getting in.
Wild card.
Yeah, basically. And on the opposite side of the coin, the Devils and Pittsburgh Penguins are also picked to finish fourth and fifth, respectively. Toronto had a season record of 1-1-1 against New Jersey and 3-0-0 against Pittsburgh last year, so that tells you where we all stand with that. They're also predicting Austin Matthews, who, while he hasn't been himself the past 2 years, with the new coach, he's projected to record 40 to 45 goals and 30 to 35 assists for about 80 points in a new 84-game regular season for this coming year. So
yeah, and that makes him like an $8 or $9 million player.
Yeah, maybe. As opposed to the 14 and a quarter he's currently getting.
Yeah, that's what that'll make him. And if he thinks he's worth 14, if he does that, he's got another thing coming. Anyway, Alexander Burmistrov was drafted 8th overall back in 2010 in the NHL draft. He's on his way back, Aaron. We know where he's going. Where's he going to land?
What? Well, when he was originally drafted, the Atlanta Thrashers selected him 8th overall after he posted 65 points in 62 games with the Barrie Colts. He immediately jumped into the NHL, but unfortunately didn't quite perform up to expectations. He spent a few years playing in Russia. He played with Akbars in 2022-23. Played with Dynamo Moscow in 24-25, and most recently played with the Shanghai Dragons last year, where he had just 2 points in 20 games. But he is coming back to North America with the Cincinnati Cyclones, which is the Toronto Maple Leafs ECHL affiliate. Now, while it is an unexpected destination, it might be his last opportunity to sort of rediscover his game and prove that there's still something left in the tank for him. It's going to be interesting. I think at this point, really, he's going to be more of a depth signing than anything else, as well as a bit of a steadying hand for some of the rookies that are coming out through the USHL to the ECHL before heading on to the Marlies. So we'll see what develops here. I'm certainly going to be keeping an eye on him.
There have been players that have gone from the ECHL and they've made it to the Marlies, and then actually played a little bit for the Leafs. So the path is there for him. There is a path. It's not well worn. It's a pretty private territory. Very few have traveled that road. Maybe he can do it. I mean, he has some, drafted 8th overall. He must have some skills. I don't know how many of those skills he's lost in, what is it, Aaron? 16 years? That's a career.
He's 34 years of age. So as is tradition with the Maple Leafs, we're good at picking up players on the downside of their career. So, welcome to the organization, Alex.
And the whole thing is he's just looking for a last hurrah. I think that's all he's doing. It's basically bucket list, right? I think it's a bucket list thing. If he hasn't made enough money yet, he's not going to make any more now. So I don't think it's about money or contracts. I think it's more of a challenge. But, that's a good motivator. I mean, if he's saying, I just want to play, I don't care if I make the money, I just want to play, that's a good thing for Toronto. That's, in fact, an excellent thing for Toronto. That's something they should be happy for. So we'll see how that works out. Let's go into MLS and talk about Sargent and Etienne Jr. and a game that was played that, unbelievably, TFC beat Miami.
Josh Sargent and Derek Etienne scored second half goals 3 minutes apart, and TFC managed to hold on for a 2-1 victory over Inter Miami on Saturday. Now, neither team had found the net until Sargent scored in the 59th minute to give the Toronto the lead. Danielle Saloy and Etienne had assists on Sargent's fourth goal. Saloy's helper was his seventh, and Etienne collected his third. Lionel Messi, wonder of wonders, cut it to 2-1 in the 82nd minute with his 14th goal of the season and his 64th in 71 career appearances. Rodrigo de Paul and Maximiliano Falcone also had assists. Luke Gavin saved 2 shots for Toronto, who are now 5, 7, and 9. And Dane St. Clair finished without a save for Inter Miami, who are 11, 4, and 6, who have fallen to 0, 2, and 2 in August. At this point here, honestly, Inter Miami has been floundering. I'm not sure exactly what's happened post World Cup, but they've had a difficult time with it. Toronto is 2-0 and 2 in its last 4 matches and 2-1 and 4 since Canada Day. Inter Miami posted a 4-2 victory in Toronto back in May, but since then hasn't been able to do much.
Absolutely, absolutely, and of course, as far as TFC is concerned, they're trying to nail down a playoff spot. They're within reach,
Yep.
and I didn't see the standings, how the points affected their standings. They were just below the cutoff line for the playoffs last time I looked.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough road to get in, but there is still that possibility.
Yeah, I'm looking at it here now. Let me see. No, they're not showing it the way I need to see it. I need to see. Oh yeah, there it is. Yes, so they're just 10th, right?
Yep.
And they have, where is it? The total. Where's the points? Well, I guess they just go win loss tie. There they are, right at the beginning. That's why I didn't see it. All right, so they're actually tied with Orlando with 24 points. And in between them is the line to make the playoffs. So this is a much better Toronto team than they've had the past few years. Sorry about delaying. It's just a feel-good story, beating Miami, Aaron. These kinds of victories have been very rare for them the past few years. In fact, victories have been rare. They've gone on runs of, their greatest moments are 10 ties in a row. That's their greatest moment, right? Without any victories in between. So can we project them to make the playoffs? Do you think that they're trending in that direction? We know they got a shot.
There's an outside shot at this point here. I mean, they have been trending better over the most recent stretch, but at 5, 7, and 9, tied with DC United and with Atlanta FC bringing up the rear behind them, it's still possible, but it's not going to be easy.
Now, speaking of playoffs, the Jays have Guerrero back in the lineup, and they lost their first series in a while, in 2 months, I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, Guerrero was only batting .263 with 7 homers and 46 ribbies. Before the collision, he was hitting .310 in his last 7 games, so he was trending upwards. His rehab stint went well. 2 walks and an RBI double. Went 1 for 1 at the plate outside of those 2 walks. He says he's seeing the ball well. So for somebody that had a concussion and there were concerns over that, he seems to be back on form.
Good for him. Dylan Cease goes into the 7th inning with a no-hitter.
Yeah, the Jays managed to hold on to win that one 4-3. So that was a bit of a relief for them. He's been, I think, one of the great surprises for the Jays this season is the fact that he's performed as well as he has, with all of the injuries that they've had and all of the issues that they've had with pitching. He's been one of their bright spots coming into this most recent stretch. So I'm glad to see that.
Yeah, I don't think he's a surprise, but I think the fact that there's success on the mound is the surprise. I don't think it's a surprise that he's the one bringing it. He was a great pitcher when they signed him. They knew what they were getting. They knew what they wanted. And he has, if one looks at a surprise as something like saying, well, we paid for a guy to be a number 1 pitcher, but we weren't sure he was going to be one. You might be able to go to that extent, but he had a history. So good for the Jays, good for Cease. And unfortunately, on Sunday, they lost 8-3, Aaron.
Yeah, it was not a good game for them. Unfortunately, that loss puts them at 64 and 68. They're 1.5 games out of a wild card spot and chasing the Rangers and the Guardians for the last spot. I find it interesting. The Yankees are 74 and 56, and they're in the first wild card spot, which is just interesting to me when it comes to the American League. It's one of those situations where you would expect them to be doing better, but with teams like the White Sox at 68 and 62 and the Houston Astros at 65 and 66 holding those first two spots, there's really nowhere else for them to go.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. Let's go to the NSL. Small Hunter score in first half.
Yep. So AFC Toronto managed to put together a 2-0 win over the Halifax Tide on Sunday. Nikki Small got her first goal of the season in the 20th minute, and Kaylee Hunter scored on the penalty 12 minutes later for her 8th goal of the campaign. Goalkeeper Sabrina D'Angelo faced 17 shots, 1 on target, and posted her 4th clean sheet in 6 games since joining the team. Annika Toth faced 11 shots with 3 on target. Toronto at 8-5-4 remained third in the NSL standings with 28 points and own the league's best road record at 7-2-1. Halifax at 6-8-3 is fifth, 1 point behind Vancouver for the 4th and final playoff spot.
NSL Rise rout the Rapid.
Yeah, the Vancouver Rise scored 4 times in the second half to knock off the league-leading Ottawa Rapid 5-1. And about Métis Lopez and Camila Reyes on a penalty shot also scored for the Rise, who scored 3 times in a span of 10 minutes early in the second half and then cruised to the blowout win at TD Place. Elise Bell scored in the 82nd minute for the Rapid to spoil Jessica Wolf's shutout bid. But, Vancouver took 4 of the game's 7 corners. Each team received 2 yellow cards. At the end of the day, solid victory for the Rise to move into 4th place in the 6-team circuit, 1 point ahead of the Halifax Tide. The Rise have improved to 7 wins, 1 draw, and 9 losses for 22 points. The first place Rapid with 33 points remain 3 up on second place Montreal Roses. The Rapid slipped to 10 wins, 4 losses, and 3 draws.
The CFL Lions have won 4 straight. They were 1-5. They are now 5-5, and they're 2 points out of second place in the stronger West Division of the Canadian Football League.
Yeah, it was a convincing win too. 30-16 is nothing to laugh at. That was a solid performance by everybody all around. Looking at the way that everybody played, Nathan Rourke threw 2 touchdown passes. The defense forced turnovers. Lee and Stanley Thomas Oliver both had INTs. Lorenzo Malden sacked Riders quarterback Trevor Harris twice, while defensive tackle Casey Sales also had a sack. I think one of the biggest things coming out of this is the fact that they were able to put pressure on Harris, being able to understand he likes to get the ball out quick, so they were able to jump on him early. Buck Pierce had high praise for his defense, making big plays at the right time. He says it's a group that's hungry to be great. So, at the end of the day, Rourke finished with 22 of 28 passes completed for 355 yards and 1 INT. Xander Horvath also scored on a 1-yard dive. And at the end of the day, it is where it is, and the standings are what they are. Glad to see that, they're closing up a little bit. There's not the runaway favorites at the front anymore. Edmonton's now 8-3. Saskatchewan is 6-4, and BC's now 5-5.
Let's talk about the Elks and the Bombers.
So the Elks rallied past the Bombers on Blanchard's walk-off field goal. They erased a 16-point deficit before Vincent Blanchard drove a 40-yarder as time expired to give them the 22-19 victory at Commonwealth. Cody Fajardo finished with 259 yards, a passing touchdown, and a rushing touchdown on 20 for 32 passes. Winnipeg's offense moved the ball well early. Zach Colarios finished the quarter with 122 passing yards, while Brady Oliveira had 66 yards on 6 carries, but it only resulted in a 3-0 lead. So I think you can see where the problem came into it here.
Argonauts beat the Hamilton Tiger Cats. The lead was in the Tiger Cats' hands, but then it's like a storm. They came at them, the Argos did, and won the game.
There was a rather hefty rain delay, too.
Yeah, 1 hour and 7 minutes.
Yeah. Which, at the end of the day, Kelly finished 26 of 34 with 289 passing yards, 3 TDs, 1 INT, and 1 rushing major. Devontae Coxey had 4 catches for 75 yards to go with his 2 scores, and Tyler Kamen made 7 catches for 74 yards. Scott Milanovich went back to the well with Trey Ford after his performance in the Tabbies' win over the Roughies last week. He had his moments, but Toronto's pass rush was just a little too much. He finished with 19 completions and 356 passing yards. So
Did
at the
well.
end of the day, they just couldn't keep up.
Let's talk about the Red Blacks and how upper management has been dinged.
So for those of you who know, Sean Burke is gone after starting 0-10 this CFL season. It was decided that they were going to release him. This comes 6 days after Adrian Ciara stepped down. And this is after Dinwiddie was promoted to head coach and general manager. Now, the unfortunate thing is, during his tenure with the Red Blacks, he joined the team in 2021. They had made the playoffs just once during that 5 years. So, unfortunately, they felt like change had to be made. So, there you go. They also appointed longtime CFL exec Jim Popp as a senior football advisor today as well. Popp has spent 28 years in the CFL as a coach and a front office exec. He most recently served as general manager of the Argonauts from 2017 to 2019.
Yeah, and then he was in the UFL doing some stuff there. Let's go to the WNBA and the tempo.
So this has been a very trying season. I think for the way that the tempo drafted and the organization that they created, they felt that they would have been a little bit further along. But unfortunately, they were eliminated from playoff contention last week in the middle of a 12-game losing skid. They were 11-26 on the season. They finally managed to beat the expansion Portland Fire 80-79 in Vancouver, but turned around the next night and promptly dropped one to AJ Wilson and the Las Vegas Aces 88-78, again in the same arena out in Vancouver.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Tembo's injury woes and how it's contributing to their season.
Yeah, they have not really had a good go of it. Brittany Sykes and Anisha Morrow have been ruled out for the remainder of the WNBA season. Both players were injured in their win on Friday over the Portland Fire. Sykes played just 1 minute and 31 seconds in the first quarter before exiting with a foot injury. She was in just her second game back after missing 8 weeks with a left plantar fascia injury. Morrow hurt her knee midway through the second after getting tangled up with Fire forward Emily Engstler underneath the Portland basket. It's an unfortunate collision. She ended up staying on the floor for several minutes before she was carried off the court. So while those ambulance are going to keep Sykes and Morrow out of Toronto's final 8 games, neither are going to require long recoveries. It's just a question now of getting them the rest that they need.
Let's go PWHL and talk Ottawa Charge.
So the Ottawa Charge, after their success last season, are actually going to be moving. They are going to be moving to the Canadian Tire Centre starting this season. So it's going to be a great venue for them to play in. It's going to greatly expand on their fan base. And the fact that their current arena is really not playable due to renovations and size limitations, it's going to be awesome. Because they've had more than 280,000 visitors come watch the Ottawa Charge over the course of their past couple of seasons. So being able to get the Canadian Tire Centre as opposed to playing at the old TD place is going to mean a lot for the team.
MLS, Vancouver and Montreal soccer fans have booed the national anthem of the United States. We're back there again, Aaron.
Yeah, we are. Ahead of Vancouver's game against FC Dallas on Saturday, they unfortunately started booing the anthem there. Also, at Stade Saputo before the CF Montreal game against the LA Galaxy, there were boos there as well. This appears to be overrun from the recent failed trade deal and the U.S.'s decision to add rules against Quebec's language rules. It's one of those situations where we wish there wasn't necessarily bleed over from politics into sports, But it is the reality that we're currently living in.
Absolutely. Let's go over to the third period. Let's talk about the Habs.
So, looking at the offseason moves that the Habs have made, there's some stuff that they've been doing. They signed Ivan Demidov to a long-term deal with Jacob Dobish getting a 3-year contract. That's really good roster management. They added Maximilian Schubert and Brett Berard for the couple two-way contracts. Brendan Gallagher's gone to Vancouver. Joshua Roy has gone to Utah. Joe Veleno was not qualified, and Patrick Laine is currently in UFA. As it currently stands, I think overall they're going to get a B this offseason. They've made some changes where they need to address some issues, but we'll have to see if it actually bears fruit for them.
Yeah. Let's go to the Jets.
So there's 4 things that I think the Jets are going to need. Last season was rough. Didn't end the way that people hoped it would. They need Connor Hellebuck to come back. And by come back, I mean be his old self again.
Completely. Come back completely.
Yeah, exactly. They need more scoring depth. There weren't a lot of teams with 330 goal scorers last season. The Avalanche had McKinnon, Nakash, and Brock Nelson. The Oilers had Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and Zach Hyman. The Tampa Bay Lightning had Kucherov, Gensel, and Hagel. And the Jets had Connor, Scheifele, and Velarde, but they were the only 4 teams with a trio of 30 goal scorers. The problem is, while it's great that they had those guys up front, nobody else on the team had more than Alex Iafallo's 13 goals. So there's a bit of a fall off there, so they need more scoring depth.
Absolutely.
They also need Brad Lambert, Isaac Rosen, and Viggo Bjork to be placed in a position where it's possible for them to succeed. And last of all, they need another North-style season from Josh Morrissey. It's a big ask, man. But, if Morrissey can get back to where he was playing at in 23-24, the Jets should have far fewer difficulties. But as he's getting a little longer in the tooth, we don't necessarily know if that's going to be possible.
They missed the Dane. Oilers.
So there's a lot of expectations going into this season. Draisaitl, I think, of everybody, seems particularly comfortable with what Babcock is going to bring to the Oilers bench. He says, I think it's very clear that he's got a plan, and I think he holds guys accountable. And I think to him, it's not about who it is when it comes to accountability. We're looking to be coached. We're looking to get better. And I sometimes deserve to be yelled at, too, just like anyone else does. I don't think Babs is going to care overly much who we are in terms of that. I think sometimes that's needed. And certainly for a team that at times seems comfortable with players floating, accountability is going to be a good thing for them.
Elias Pettersson in Vancouver. There's talk about him.
Yeah, he could potentially reach 3 different power play milestones in 26-27. Pettersson managed to reach 9th overall in power play points for Vancouver during last season, tallying his 166th power play point on March 24th, 2026. He finished this season with a career total of 172, which sits 5 back of the next record in franchise history, currently being held by Alex Edler. Now, 8th all-time isn't the only mark that he could hit. Based on career averages, it's likely that he could register at least 20 points on the man advantage, something he's done in all but 2 seasons throughout his NHL career. 19 more power play points in 26-27 would shoot him all the way up to 191 total and 5th in franchise history, passing not only Edler, but Stan Smyl and Tony Tanti and Quinn Hughes. So that's some big stuff there. Right up there with him is going to be Brock Besser, who finished the 25-26 season tied with Todd Bertuzzi for the 5th most power play goals in Canucks history with 79. That's certainly something that's attainable for him. It's not all doom and gloom for the Canucks. There's a little bit of sunshine to be seen.
Absolutely. Well, we've got a baseball season with the Jays, now finished with the Yankees, and also finished with playoff teams to play against. Now, here's the problem. As much as they're going to be playing weaker teams, I hope they don't play to those teams' level. They have to play at the same level they're playing against these other good teams where they've won series and they've kept things close with the Yankees. They've got to make hay now because the sun is shining and opportunity is in front of them. And if the Texas Rangers continue to be hot, that's the team right now. they're chasing. And that
No,
team
for
is
sure.
playing well. And that team is playing well. So they're going to have to play well to make the playoffs. There's only one spot open to them. I don't see the Red Sox and Yankees falling apart or falling out of the picture in the playoffs. I don't see that. So there's only one spot available. The Jays have to get it, and to get it, they're going to have to play better than the Texas Rangers and everybody else. They're a game and a half behind right now, so they're close, but they're not there yet. And I wish them a lot of luck. And as far as the Leafs are concerned, no news, I guess, is good news. The hope with the Leafs is that basically Matthews looks like a superstar. He hasn't looked like a superstar lately, and I don't know if he's capable of driving the offense. I really feel that's a weakness on his part, that he's incapable of doing that. So if he can't finish, that leaves him with very little of asset appeal for the Leafs. And I got to tell you, it's going to be feast or famine with what happens this year. If he does not, if he does not score more than 35 goals, and if he does not get more than 80 points, they're going to have to tell him the bad news. You're going to get paid what you're worth. You're not getting 14 million. And then all I can say, Aaron, is there's a poison pill if you sign him for too much, and there's a bit of a poison pill if you let him go for nothing. So if I'm the Leafs, what they've got to do is make a determination this season on whether he stays or whether he goes. And if he wants to be a Leaf, they should extend him during the season. I know he doesn't like to talk about it during the season, but if he doesn't extend this year, I would suggest to him and to them that he find a new place to play. That's what this year is for me, as far as the Maple Leafs are concerned.
No,
Early, early,
I 100% agree with that, Frank.
early,
It's the way
early.
it's got to be.
Absolutely. And as far as the CFL is concerned, a lot of people are upset with the rules and talking about how, I have one friend who's very, very talkative about the 35-second clock. He really doesn't like it. He says it rips the fans off for plays and such. At the end of the day, for me, he raised a point that I I keep forgetting, and is a definite possibility for the Canadian Football League. Let's go on the presumption that what people are saying is true, that they're creating a game that looks like the American game, Aaron. Could you buy into that with what they're doing? Would you say that would be a fair assumption that the game is starting to look like the NFL more than the CFL?
Well, I definitely think they're trying to make it a little more accessible to the American fan base, seeing as it's being carried on CBS Sports and ESPN.
But not just the fan base. The
Mm,
point that he made, and it's one I've always toyed with in my mind, and it's escaped recently, and now it's come back in after this conversation. What's to stop the Canadian Football League from having a field that's more American friendly, giving the NFL an opportunity to create a minor league football system, which the Canadian Football League will be? In that end, to that end, there will be financial support from a very big organization. The NFL is pretty big. Like chump change for the NFL is big money for the CFL. Would that be a fair statement?
I think so. And with the Argonauts' partnership with the Buffalo Bills, that certainly brings it a little more into focus, especially with their joint partnership last year. It can certainly bring that closer to fruition. Let's be honest here: the league is not rolling in money. It's
No.
not like these teams turn a profit. So the opportunity that is there for them to at least temporarily, for now, align themselves with the NFL is an opportunity that they should definitely try to take.
I referenced you as an example. I referenced you as an example. And I made this statement. Again, I'm going to ask you how you feel about this statement. The Toronto Maple Leafs, big league hockey, very important team, have a minor league team called the Toronto Marlies. They have a following. The stadium is pretty full, right?
Yep.
They get pretty good coverage, right? Because they're associated with the Leafs, so it's easy to keep them in the news to a degree, right? They win a championship of their league, which is a big deal because they won a championship. What's to say that that isn't a parallel situation to the NFL using Toronto as a minor league team? That there's a parallel there. It would enhance the Argos. I know people don't want to hear this. They don't want to hear it, but it would enhance the visual of the Argos as a legitimate professional football team. Are they not a professional football team now? No, not what I'm saying. But what I'm talking about is image and the enhancement of that image. With the NFL money coming in and NFL support, in other words, players that let's say are drafted by the Dallas Cowboys. You got a quarterback that's drafted by the Dallas Cowboys. And the Dallas Cowboys send him down, and if they're going to draft him high, you know he's going to be a player of repute, right? College football fans will gravitate to the Canadian Football League because those new stars that have left the college ranks are now going to, the Argos and the CFL as prospective stars of the future. That's part of the hook that you have with the Marlies and the American Hockey League. The hook is they've got these players that are the future of the National Hockey League. Now you're going to see these young stars that are going to be somebody soon, maybe, right? So it's just a selling point, and I don't see that being a bad idea. I know we want to consider ourselves, especially in these political times, to be independent of the Americans, but we're not talking about political here. We're talking business. And sports is a business. MLSE was, and now Rogers, that owns the Toronto Argonauts, are in the business of making money. Now, for those of you that think, well, if they don't want to do the Argos right, if they don't want to promote the Argos, if they don't want to do what they should do to promote the Argos, if they don't want to turn this into a great franchise, let somebody else buy it. Here's the problem. Who is that somebody else that's going to buy them?
Yeah. At this point here, really the only other potential suitor would be the NFL to turn it into a developmental league.
So I think
the situation we're in here.
Yeah, the partnership, and it's a reality that, are you interested in seeing football live in Toronto? If you are, there has to be a team playing in Toronto. What makes the Canadian football, I say this all the time, Aaron, I'll continue to say it. What makes the Canadian Football League Canadian is the towns and cities that the teams are in, and they play in Canada where Canadians can go watch football. That's what makes it the Canadian Football League. Canadian players can play. I don't know how much they're going to have to give in. Like, if this is what they're doing, and all we've witnessed is the first salvos of the Canadian Football League becoming an extension of the NFL, this is just the beginning. I'm just wondering how far they can go. That is, the people that make the decisions about the CFL, right? How far can they go without killing the goose? Because the danger here is there are teams that are successful in the CFL who are fine with the way things are. Right now, there's teams, they're fine. The stadiums, Edmonton even starting to get people. They won't want them to screw around with what's going on, because that's the debate. It's the constant debate. How does the CFL, as a bunch of owners, agree to do something that's not a benefit to all of them, but in the long run, a benefit to all of them, if you don't want to wait to find out if it's true that it'll be a benefit, and you don't want to risk the success you already have? That's the biggest challenge the CFL has had from day one, going back 30 years.
You're 100% right on that, Frank. I can't really dispute that.
I hope they can figure it out. This is the thing that I'm starting to see. It's possible that people are right, that they're selling out the Canadian game to bring in the American game. But it's less about bringing in the American game. It's more about bringing in
the American dollars,
the American money.
Now, before we go, there were two other stories that I wanted to touch on, Frank, that I didn't actually have a chance to get to in my original show copy, mainly because those games were still wrapping up as the information I was sent to you. First of all, I want to congratulate Canada in their Little League World Series game against Team Panama today. Canada managed to score 3 runs in the 7th inning, that's extras, to take the game finally 3-2. Panama was only able to get 2 quick runs but at the end of the day, Canada came out on top. The other was Team Canada beating Team USA with a 4-goal fourth quarter comeback to claim the gold medal at the 2026 Pan Am Men's Lacrosse Championships games in Kingston, Jamaica yesterday.
Right.
So Canada was down 8-5 entering the final frame. They tied the game with 90 seconds to go and won the ensuing faceoff. Alex Simmons got to play hero, scoring with 20 seconds left to play on a beautiful shot fake and dive. He got the game-tying goal and the game-winning goal for his fourth and fifth points of the game, and one of the best performances of the year in international lacrosse. So Canada takes gold, Team USA takes silver, and the Haudenosaunee took bronze by beating the host Jamaicans.
Absolutely.
So congratulations to Team Canada on both counts.
Congratulations to Canada on both counts. Aaron, thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Frank.
He's Aaron William Freeland, otherwise known as Meathead. I'm Candid Frank Stanishi, otherwise known as, I don't know what, something. See you next time, everyone. Have a great week.